Have your attention, please. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
You're listening to the House of Cards on Facebook, YouTube, and BigPatriotRadio.com. All licenses for music and content have been purchased by and are for the express use of Big Patriot Radio Networks. All information, opinions, and topics are for entertainment purposes and do not expressly represent the opinions of the show's host and or producer. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Introducing to you.
You're on House of Cards, live on Facebook and YouTube.
It's going down now.
Locked and loaded with the truth.
Hey, good evening, everybody. It is Thursday night. That means it's time for Beaufort County's House of Cards. I am Mike Covert. Glad to have you here with us. Let's fix a couple of these audio things there. Hey, it is, Thursday night, December 11th. Can you believe that? We've got one more show after this one this year, and then we'll be back in 2026. 14 days until Christmas. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wow. Hey, if you folks have not started picking that special gift out for someone or that gift for someone special, it's probably a good time to go ahead and get started. It is go time. Again, my name is Mike Covert, your host, coming to you live from the Big Patriot Radio studios here in the great state of South Carolina. We want to welcome all those folks watching on YouTube and Facebook. Also to those folks listening on BigPatriotRadio.com. Don't forget, you can get your BigPatriotRadio.com app. It's free to download. All you got to do is take a picture of that QR code right there and get that on your phone. You can go to Big Patriot Radio. It is live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, with all your best blues, news, country popping, classic rock right there on internet radio, BigPatriotRadio.com. Again, I want to ask you, if you're on Facebook or YouTube, let's see, we got these cool new things. Let me see if I can find them. And there they go. Like and follow us. Like and follow us. You can subscribe. If you're on YouTube, like and follow us on Facebook. And there's the red and blue, so that's the combination of the two. But anyway, whatever you're on, whatever form of social media, please like us, follow us, subscribe to us, ring that little bell, and most of all, share. Go ahead and hit that share little arrow there on your phone or your laptop or your iPad, whatever you're listening to. Share it. That way that the internet folks, the algorithms and all that kind of stuff, they see people sharing, and it makes it, the algorithms like it and makes the show available for more folks to watch, listen, and enjoy. Go ahead. Do it now. Seriously. Go ahead and do it.
Let's go.
The station that keeps it rocking 24/7.
Ladies and gentlemen,
BigPatriotRadio.com.
We have a great show for you tonight. We've got a couple of congressional candidates coming on here. The first one I think is going to come on here in about, 5-10 minutes, something like that. Then the second one will be on a little while later. And we're going to get to them as soon as they get here. But first, I want to give you a little background on something for those folks that are in the Beaufort County, whether you're north or south of the Broad or here in the Low Country, wherever you are, made big news. And unfortunately, the mainstream media reports on it. I don't want to say half, arsedly. Because that would be giving them props. So the very poor job that they reported on the Beaufort County Council, Councilman Logan Cunningham, last Monday at General County Council meeting. had brought forth a motion to rescind the last vote taken on the Pine Island subject. Now, again, there has been so much disinformation. I've been shaking my head all week. I guess having been there on that side of the dais, I mean, I know what that feels like when people start reporting only bits and pieces of what you say or make up the truth as they go along. So what I thought I would do is give you the real reason, the objective truth. Remember, that's what we do here. It's objective truth and reality, not subjective truth and reality, which is what usual leftists, socialist Democrats, Marxists, whatever, they tend to believe in subjective reality or subjective truth. Anyway, no, it was not an effort to revote. No, they weren't voting on, or if his motion had passed, no, they weren't voting on anything about Pine Island. It was simply a vote to rescind the last vote about Pine Island. Now, it was not a fast one to try and pull one for the developer. I saw that written everywhere that Cunningham, was in cahoots with the developer and getting paid off, and this was a fast one. That is absolutely not true. That is absolutely not true. Those people who say that, people like the Queenie or like the Yorkie Poo, some conservation groups and their lawyers, are completely telling you and the rest of the public complete false statements. Completely false. They have their agenda. They're going to push it as hard as they can. So, why did Cunningham make the motion, and why did council members Reitz, Brown, and Bartholomew join him with a yes vote? Well, the last time this subject, Pine Island, was up for a vote, the developer had put together a final document in trying to get a development agreement committee to be set. Now, this document was called the Pine Island Plan. Now, interesting, the public never got a chance to see the Pine Island Plan. We put it out here on the screen here several weeks ago, but the public never got that chance. County Council didn't have more than 24 hours. Did not have more than 24 hours to review the plan in its entirety, see it for themselves, much less ask for questions or do interviews or have hearings or anything such. That is what I call sneaky, back channel, backhanded, typical behind-the-scenes style politics. We were told Chairwoman Alice Howard and Vice Chair Tabernick were not going to allow such non-transparent acts. When they, took office, we're not going to do what the old leadership did. They said, we're transparency, accountability. We're not going to allow this kind of backroom dealing. Oh, but wait a minute. They have. They were at the tip of the spear. They told us one thing and have provided another. It's the typical Beaufort County rinse and repeat. Even Councilwoman Tabernick, in making her point this past Monday, before the vote to rescind, she said, I know exactly what I was voting on. Nobody questioned whether she did or not. So when you look at what she said, in the context she said it in, the meaning is she knew that was going to be brought up. Vice Chair Tabernick, you didn't allow the process, the due process, to flow as you and the chairwoman have decided to run the ship in any manner as you wish. No different, quite frankly, than Joe Passavant and Larry McKellen. People are tired of this. They've told you they're tired of this. You've admitted they're tired of this, yet you continue to open that door to the back room and keep the public in the dark. The public's not going to handle this anymore. They're simply not standing for this. The calls are coming. The cries are being heard. This is why Councilman Cunningham made the motion in the first place. Rescind the vote, let the Pine Island plan be talked about in its due process, and give it to the public, and then take the vote at another time, whether to allow or not allow a development agreement committee to sit. By the way, and we told you this first here on Big Patriot Radio, the Natural Resources Committee of Beaufort County Council's mission, their mission statement, is to set development agreement committees and negotiate. That's their mission, to have a development agreement committee. That's where the developer or builder and the committee of Beaufort County Council, they meet, they discuss, they get input from staff, but the staff does not call the shots. The council committee members do, along with the developer. They work this out, or they walk away and say, we can't work it out. That is how the process should work. Either agree to something or agree to disagree and walk away. This would have not have been any problem. This would have not have been an issue. There would be countless hours I would have been able to get back instead of talking about this. To the people like some guy with the last name of New, some attorney with the last name of White, I guess, to the Queen, to Yorkie Poo, your actions are so obvious. I would love to have any of them on this show to talk about their actions, talk about their behaviors, talk about their beliefs, talk about why they are wanting to keep the public at a distance. They don't want to hear you. You've only got 3 minutes. You better hurry up. But none of them have the, I can't say that word, the cojones or stones to come on here, especially not Yorkie Poo. Having the truth thrown up in their face is not something they would be comfortable with in doing. Now, you all know, no one has been on this show that hasn't been treated with the utmost respect, whether I agree with them or not. That is neither here nor there. That is not my decision to sway you. It is to let them say what they want to say. Yeah, I ask the questions, but they say what they want to say. You'll hear it tonight. But those who won't do that, do they have something to hide? So yes, it is a shame that the vote to rescind failed 4-6. The usual suspects voted no. That's Howard, Tabernick, Dawson, Lawson, Glover, and Passament. Larry McKellen was absent. I personally think he would have been a yes, because it is legal. That was thrown up. Oh, it's not, it's illegal. You can't vote to rescind. That's such horse manure. Yes, you can. And it is fully within the bounds of county council. Santos Ramos 2296 says the damn truth is way too much for some, like for Donald Trump. If McKellen had voted yes, and again, I think he would have had he been there. He's a magistrate. He should know the law. It still would have failed 5-6. So, hey, kudos to Logan Cunningham in having the cojones to bring this up, to stand up and make that motion. That did take some guts, and I'll give it where it's due. And those that have said, well, he is doomed in his congressional campaign now because he did this, couldn't possibly, not only is that far-fetched with any of the, I think there's like 10 or 11 that are running, for anyone to do that and say, oh, they're doomed now, that is so far-fetched and so out of bounds and so mischaracterization of people. We have wanted, we've begged, we've requested, we've asked, and we've said, we want transparency, and we want accountability. There you have it. Last Monday night, that was it. That was transparency and accountability coming right before your eyes, and the majority voted to keep it closed. Which brings me to another point. And we've got our first guest in the green room right now. We're getting ready to bring him out. But another point, one of the council members who voted yes had someone in their district, this is what I have been told, come to them and said, you know, you voted yes, and I can no longer support you, and I'm going to have to vote for someone to replace you. So when I heard that, it didn't really click until we hung up and I started thinking about it later. And I want to say, you know, whoever you are out there that said that, you're a coward. You're a flat out coward. You don't end your support for someone in office, for a sitting council member, rather, for one vote, and immediately say, that's it, I'm going to vote for your replacement. Why? Because that means when you look at the psychology of this and the mentality of this, of the game we play called politics, that means that coward already had their mind made up and were planning on voting for someone else. That means there's someone else in the wings waiting, which we knew. We've been talking about this. Again, you're a coward. Furthermore, along the same line, there is conversation being had in county circles around the southern part of the county, at least, that someone in the county GOP leadership is putting together a slate of candidates for 2026. Now, this is highly unethical, highly unethical. When the primary is completed, and we know who our GOP candidate for Congress is in the first seat, in the first district, we know who all the county council GOP people, candidates are, and so on and so forth, then the GOP obviously will put that slate out there. Totally get it. But in the primary, for the GOP to do that, or someone in leadership of the GOP to do that on their own, or as a, let's just call it another club, private or not, or whatever, highly unethical. And folks up the food chain are being notified about this. We know what you're doing. The public is going to be notified more and more, like they are right now. We're going to get it out there. And frankly, to be honest with you, I am giving publicly right now the GOP in Beaufort County a dare. Right now, I'm giving you a dare, because they have been known, from what we have been told, to kick people out if you cross them. So I offer them the biggest dare. I dare you to kick me out of the party for giving the public the objective truth of what's going on. That's right. Now, if it doesn't go on, obviously, we won't be giving any of that out, because it won't happen. That's how we play: fair, transparent, and accountable. But if you do, and if someone in leadership decides to put a slate up in the primary, we're going to let the public know. And again, I dare you to try and kick me out. I dare you.
Your Rock Authority. Big Patriot Radio.
I wouldn't tell anybody about this.
All right, let's bring in our first guest here. I'm going to read his bio he sent to me before we bring him in. He says, our guest is the man fighting for the movement to destroy corruption in our country and restore the American dream. Now, he's running for Congress to take that fight, and he's running for the 1st Congressional District, Charleston, Dorchester, Berkeley, Beaufort, Port of Colleton counties. He's running for Congress to take that fight to the halls of Washington. Ever since he was 17 years old, he has dreamed of being able to make a difference for his country. He says, I love America ever since he was a teenager, and has been fighting against the growing leftist power. He says there was fighting when they tore down, he was there rather, when the fighting was being taken to our statues and being torn down. Of American heroes. He joined the Marine Corps, Semper Fi, to fight for the country that he loves. He was there fighting on January 6th, went to prison, and was pardoned by President Donald J. Trump that January 6th day in Washington. He says he has sacrificed everything he's ever owned, lost his business, been fired from his job, had his social media attacked, lost his bank account, and has had countless of death threats because of his fight for the American people. He did say that he would do it all over again if that meant ending corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as we bring in 1st Congressional District candidate Tyler Dykes, ladies and gentlemen.
All
Tyler.
right, thanks for having me.
Hey, how are you, sir?
I'm fantastic. How about you?
If I was doing any better, I'd be you, man. Hey, let's jump right into this, Tyler. And hey, I know you all, we've had a couple candidates on here. Hopefully all of you will be on here at least once, maybe more than once. I know your time is precious. So I want to jump right into it.
Let's do it.
You have quite the background, I got to say. In looking into you, I had heard about you, but didn't put the name that I had heard of previously with now. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. I know who this is. You have quite the background, and you're only 29?
Younger than that, even 27.
27. Oh, well, I was giving you 2 years. My gosh. Before we talk politics, tell me a little bit where you live, what part of the 1st District, and what do you do for a living? A little bit of that.
Sure. So prior to, of course, my arrest for January 6th, I was running actually a tech company doing IT services for people, working in cybersecurity, helping people with their computer needs, server repair, all of that kind of stuff. And so that was the primary thing that I was doing. And I was, of course, doing it in the Low Country area. But primarily, I went up to Charleston occasionally, but it was mostly Hilton Head, Bluffton, Beaufort, Savannah, the lower area here. So that's where I've been here for about the last 8 or 9 years, give or take a few years. Don't remember off the top of my head. And yeah, so I've been here for a while now, ever since I finished my active duty service in the Marine Corps and went into the reserves. And so, yeah, I'm, very happy to be living here for as long as I have been in the Low Country. This is my home, and I intend to continue to fight for my home like I did on January 6th.
Fantastic. And former Marine, thank you for your service, Semper Fi. What was your MOS in the Marine Corps, and more specifically, and I think I probably know this, but how did the Marine Corps prepare you for what you are doing right this moment?
It really helped prepare me. I don't think I would have been able to get through my prison experience without that. I don't think I would have been able to run my business without the Marine Corps. It was really fundamental for who I am. And so I was an air defense controller. So essentially I talked to people on the radio, directing aircraft, and that kind of thing is what I was doing. And so I did that. I was very good at it. It got me a lot of skills with technical skills. So I'd be able to start my IT business just based off of that experience. And so it was fundamental. I was not anywhere near as disciplined or as strong as I needed to be until I went through boot camp right here in the Low Country, Parris Island, practically my own backyard. Mm-hmm. And so I shipped off to boot camp and, really learned what discipline was, probably for the first time in my life. And that turned me into a man. And thanks to that, I was able to push myself through mentally, through being arrested, through being slandered in the media and all the attacks and everything else that they've been doing against me. And so were it not for that Marine Corps experience, I would not have made it. I would be in a much worse place right now. Knowing what you went through and on both of those avenues, I could see where that would be a huge asset. It's so easy to crumble when those iron bars would go in front of you. I've never been in jail, so I don't know, but I would think it would be easy to crumble, and you probably see that very often. But the Marine Corps or any other military service would definitely give you some feet
to stand on. You, as you just said, you are you're a veteran of the January 6th concern. In doing some reading, I see where you've had hit jobs taken out on you from, be it liberal media or liberal wankiness. And some of, especially in the media, at least from what I had read, it seems like some of those on the far left, the wonky side of the house, are saying now that, well, Tyler Dykes is only running for Congress because he was a January 6th hellraiser, and this is all a precursor. I mean, is this how the stars aligned? Was this the plan?
I don't know what precursor even means, precursor to what, but this was not planned by any stretch of the imagination. I went up there on January 6th to protest against the election fraud that had been going on. There's a lot of election fraud. I personally believe that the 2020 election was actually stolen and rigged. And so I went to peacefully protest and make my voice heard up there at the Capitol. And nobody thought that any of the attacks by the police or the escalations or anything like that would happen. We assumed, since Trump was still the president, that things would be peaceful and that we would be able to peacefully protest. And so I wouldn't call that a precursor to anything. It would have been much better if it had been peaceful, we were able to protest, and everyone went home. Because ultimately what they did is the police deliberately attacked the crowd. And then once the crowd responded to defend themselves, then they retreated back up the steps. And then whenever the crowd would start to lose some interest, they'd attack again, draw people in, attack back up, all the way up to the magnetically sealed doors where they suddenly popped right open for us, and they just let everyone go through.
Mm-hmm.
And and some of the media hit pieces you've described as well love to accuse me of being a neo-Nazi domestic terrorist who tried to overthrow the government in my fascist rage, which is just...
Yeah, I've read all that.
Oh, I bet you did. They said that I did a Nazi salute in the Capitol steps, which is just a complete lie. The Nazi salute in question was this, and they cropped it down, crop, until it was a salute, screenshotted that out for the sentencing hearing, printed that out to show to the judge, and said, hey, here's evidence that Dykes is an extremist. This is part of his pattern behavior, which is a lie. And here he is doing a salute. And so my lawyers, my public defenders, it wouldn't have mattered if I had paid him $1 million. They stood up and they said, Your Honor, we've got a full video here that we spent 1,000 hours looking for, showing undoubtedly it is a wave. And, they cropped it, took the screenshot and printed it. We have the video. We can prove that they're lying. And you know what the Honorable Judge Howell said? I'm going to quote her directly. She said, quote, I know what a Nazi salute looks like. That's a Nazi salute. And then she denied the motion for request for additional evidence to be presented, completely blocking that video. Naturally, of course, as soon as that statement was uttered in court, all of the media, the Post and Carrier, the the Gazette, the Island Packet, all of them immediately started running, low country, local terrorist, evil Nazi, and trying to, of course, destroy me for essentially walking into a building. They say that I assaulted cops, but I didn't even touch them, and there's video footage of this. Did not even touch them once. Not one time, not one finger did I ever touch a cop in any way, shape, or form. Didn't bump into them, didn't push them, didn't shake their hand, definitely didn't violently assault them like they tried to accuse me of doing. Mm-hmm. And so all of that, I would say, has given me a very, I don't want to say respect, because I don't respect them at all, but it sort of has made me understand the way that the justice system is rigged intentionally to try to stop anyone who's genuinely on the right, genuinely nationalistic or conservative or Christian from being able to properly represent their views and have a country that's worth having.
Unbelievable. You had mentioned about election fraud. I too am a election fraud believer, mainly because I had it happen to me. I've served in office once, ran for Congress, and got out of that race when it was financially impossible to topple Nancy. And I went back and ran for county council again. Anyway, I was left off the ballot as was my opponent now, with all fairness. Anyway, and I saw, just to real quickly give you the background, I saw with my own eyes, and this was at 5 o'clock. We waited till then. Being a public figure, you don't go with the crowds. Anyway, I saw with my own eyes the voting machines in the middle of the room that aren't supposed to be connected to the internet now. I saw with my own eyes the voting tabulator or whatever it is that you pick and choose be fixed without supposedly being hooked up. Saw it with my own eyes. Anyway, sued the election commission. That was an exercise in futility. Of course, now their guy was in jail. Imagine that, how he's behind bars. Anyway, so I am a believer. I would assume you will be too, in paper ballots.
Yes.
We have the ability to have paper ballots that are serialized. We should be in a vote on paper, in private, in red, in public. All right. Each state controls their own voting. You hear about the federal government, you hear Congress, congressional seat holders talk about, election fraud. And how is a congressional representative supposed to fix something that this is really a state thing? Where does the line stop between voting machine and going to paper?
Well, there's a lot more than just the machines that are the issue. You have, of course, the now infamous issue of you have a lot of illegal aliens that are actually voting in our elections. You have the absentee ballots where people are sending in their ballots where they don't even live in the state. And then you have many cases of where it's been discovered that somebody had died and then a month later voted for the Democrats. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, absolutely having paper ballots, that may or may not be a state issue. But there's a whole lot of other things that we can do. For example, we could easily pass a law with our Republican majority now. I don't know why they're not doing it. They could require federally paper ballots, or even better, they can require all these different checks to make sure that people are citizens. They can require nationwide ID laws and all these different efforts. There's a lot of things that they can do on the federal level in order to push to make our elections safer. Then on top of that, the feds could actually use their power and influence to influence the states into actually changing their laws. For example, you could get another probably 5 or 10, House seats in California alone just by banning illegal aliens from being able to vote. And the feds could easily use their power, which, it's federalist, anti-federalist, the whole argument, should they even do that? But they could use that power against California, for example, to force them to make it impossible for illegal aliens to vote. And so while there are states issues and federal issues, I think people underestimate the amount of influence that the federal government can have. I mean, I remember when I was, 15, 20, I was younger. And I remember how Obama threatened to withhold federal funding in North Carolina because of some transgender issue. And he was able to force the state to adopt very liberal policies as a result of threatening to withhold finances from that. And that, of course, would be up to the direction of the president, not necessarily a congressman. But there is absolutely a lot that we can be doing in addition to paper ballots to secure our elections. And a lot of it is already law already. It's just not being enforced. And so we need to have enforcement of the existing laws. And then on top of that, make sure that things are actually being counted correctly. And then one more thing, I went to a Stop the Steal rally in 2020 in Georgia, in Savannah, Georgia, where we sent somebody inside to look at the poll watchers who were counting the ballots, the votes for, Trump and Biden. And he went in and managed to get a video. I don't remember his name, but he said that he witnessed while he was inside watching them count, that he personally witnessed at least 2 different poll workers when they thought no one was looking, switch votes from the pile for Trump votes and move them over into the Biden pile, and personally witnessed that happen. Now, I'm sure that if he personally witnessed that happen himself in 20 minutes, 2 different cases of that happening, I'm sure that's happened, on a huge and much larger scale. And so even if we had paper ballots, that would still be an issue. And so I think having independent poll watchers and having them be live streamed where we can see and make sure that they're not deliberately misplacing votes like that would also be something that would need to be done. But again, a lot of these are common sense things that if we had a GOP that actually cared about America, they would be implementing this tonight with our majority in all three branches.
So the first congressional district, Charleston, all the way down to the southern tip of the state to here in Beaufort County, Dorchester, Berkeley, and part of Colleton County. What is the number one thing? What's the number one issue for the first congressional district?
I'd have to say it's mass immigration and the rising cost of living. Everything is out of control. It is expensive. I've personally had between 15 and 20 friends of mine that I've made over the past 5 years leave this area and abandon this area because of how expensive it is. And they move to other cities and other places. They just can't afford to live here. And then the wages are repressed here because of mass immigration, legal and illegal. People have been coming here. And when you have more people, it's simply, the laws of supply and demand. More people competing for jobs equals lower wages. And on top of that, a lot of people will talk infrastructure. And the reality is it takes 10 years to even put a shovel in the ground to start building out some of the infrastructure projects that we need. So if we 10x'd the amount of building that we wanted to do tonight, we wouldn't even start for a decade. And by then we might have another 1.5 million people move here. And then the issue would start all over again. And so a lot of other people will talk about the infrastructure, but the reality is that that's putting a Band-Aid on a cancer patient. You need to give them chemo, you need to cut out the cancer. And that cancer is mass immigration and inflation driving up the cost of living. And so I would say those are the two big issues, and they're very closely tied to each other.
When it comes to immigration, are you of the thought that if you're here illegally, you've committed a crime and you need to go, or are you of the thought process that, well, amnesty is okay if you haven't committed any crimes, so those that have committed crimes got to go, but if you've been good little boy and girl, we can work you in? Where is Tyler Dykes in that very vast conversation of immigration?
Deport every single illegal without question. It does not matter their age, race, gender, any of that. If they have crossed our borders illegally, they need to be deported. Full stop. If for no other reason than, of course, that they broke the law initially, like you said, when they crossed the border. But on top of that, they're functionally slaves. They can undercut the American worker in a large part because the employers are able to treat them so poorly, because if they ever disobey their employer, they'll be deported. And so they're functionally forced to work much longer hours for much lower pay than any American would be willing to do, any American citizen, or anyone who's here legally. And so because of that, that has caused a massive depression in the wages, especially for blue collar workers, construction workers, all of those kind of jobs. The trades have been not ruined, but they're getting ruined because of illegal immigration. And so, I'm sure that there are a lot of good ones. I've personally met a number of kind and polite and respectful people that were here illegally. But the problem is we don't have the resources for everybody. We have a limited amount of resources. We can't give them out to everybody. We have a limited amount of jobs. And our people have to come first, low country first, pure and simple. And so I feel bad for them, but they have to go back.
So Democrats, I'm sure the 4 or 5 that are watching right now, they have a very quick comeback to those statements. And that is, well, it's the illegals who pick your tomatoes and wash your clothes and serve you fries through a window. What is your response when you hear that?
That's what they're saying. They're saying, oh, what are you going to do if you get rid of the slaves? Who's going to pick the cotton? That's literally their argument. Are you kidding? And then second off, there are a lot of Americans I know that are happy to work hard. There's a friend of mine who went into the Marine Corps, got out of the Marine Corps, and struggled to find a job. And he ended up having to get 2 different jobs, one of which was working as an electrician. And then in the mornings, he would get up at 5 in the morning and go and chop wood, huge giant lumber to make firewood. And he'd do that for $12 an hour, chopping wood, lifting huge 50-pound, 100-pound things on a machine and cutting them. And so you can't tell me, he struggled to find jobs. And that's what he ended up having to do after years of Marine Corps service. So I just don't believe that there's not Americans that would do those jobs. there are plenty of Americans that would happily do those jobs. Just part of the problem is that a lot of them, they don't offer the kind of pay that you can afford to live here on. I was talking also to a number of college students in Charleston where they had a 5-bedroom home where they were renting out. They had 5 people that were, each of them were renting a room. So you have 4 other roommates. You're all sharing this together. Each of them was paying $1,000 a month for rent with 4 roommates trying to get through college. And they were not in a good part of town, right? When I went and visited, I kind of had to watch my back and make sure I wasn't going to get mugged on the way out. This was not a nice area, and yet they're still paying $1,000 a month each with 4 roommates. And when that's the kind of expenses that you have, even $25 an hour isn't going to really cut it. You need to make more than that, or you need to have multiple jobs or work 60 hours a week. And so it's not, from my perspective, that Americans won't work those jobs. It's that Americans simply can't afford to. And as American citizens, it is actually more profitable for a lot of them to be on public assistance than to work for $10 an hour at a lot of these jobs.
So we are running close on times. I had a bunch of other questions. One of them, real quickly, you have been vocal about AIPAC and not taking their money. Have you taken any lobby money as of right now? And if not, without the question or the answer of, well, nobody's contacted me, but if not, why not? And would you?
I would take money, but only if they do not force me to compromise my ideals. I will never take any money from AIPAC or from the Israel lobby. That is a promise that I will never take money from them under any circumstances. Now, there's a couple of constitutionalist groups that I've been talking to here in South Carolina, a couple of PACs. There's various ones like that here that really stand for the Constitution. There's a Second Amendment group that I'm talking to. There is a anti-corruption PAC that I am talking to as well. And so I would be happy to take their money, but the difference is their money doesn't come with strings attached. They want to give me money because largely they already agree with everything I'm saying. They're like, yes, you're our guy. And so from them, I'd take money, but from 99% of them, absolutely not. I won't take a dime. The reality is that if you go on the AIPAC website and go to their 2024 or 2020 elections page, they brag about having purchased 300 sitting congressmen from both parties. And so when it comes to sending more money to Israel, they are happy. The Congress is happy to pass that bill immediately. But when it comes to securing our elections, improving the economy, making life better for Americans, fixing our health care, oh, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do because they're not getting paid by the American people. And so that is something that I think has to change. AIPAC needs to register, in my opinion, as a foreign agent under FARA. And additionally, I think that we just need to get rid of a lot of this corporate PAC money in politics. But as long as there is PAC money, I will be taking PAC money from constitutionalists, from Second Amendment people, and from people that already vocally agree with everything that I'm saying, from no one else.
2 final questions as we have our next guest prepping back in their own green room. First one is campaign finance. It's a nasty thing. It's corrupt, but yet it's an absolute until some kind of reform has been made. It's an absolute must. With that said, congressional representatives must raise funds, and those that raise the most get the best tasting donuts in the form of a committee. That's a fact. What is your plan with this?
What is my plan to essentially to fundraise more money, you're saying?
Right.
Well, the biggest one is, of course, going to be small dollar donations. To go out and ask people, please come and donate. I'm getting set up on WinRed, actually, and I'm going to send that link to you here in a bit. As soon as it gets up and running, we're still finalizing that. Also on the webpage, dykesforcongress.com, you can click the donate tab, and there is a Give, Send, Go. And so small dollar donations, talking to people, that will be a big thing. But as well, a lot of it is going to be, of course, talking to a lot of these different groups that already agree and convincing them to get their people to donate to me directly as well. And so that is a plan that I have for getting financing and for getting more people involved. And I also, of course, expect that the media will begin running smear campaign after smear campaign once the campaign season really hits running. And I expect that that's going to actually attract a lot more people to me than they expect. And so all news is good news.
Yep.
And so that is part of the plan for getting financing, for being able to overcome some of these people, like Sam McCown, for example, who's put $3 million of his own money into this race. But also on top of that, he's just not good on the issues. And so I think people will really resonate with what I am saying. They will really agree. Most people that are running for the Republican Party will not talk about these things that I'm talking about. And so I think people will be really refreshed to hear someone that is willing to put their life on the line like I did for January 6th and tell the truth and speak boldly for the American people. So that's my plan. That's what I'd like to do.
Last question regarding some news of the day, Venezuela. In your opinion, does the President of the United States have the right to invade either by land, sea, or air Venezuela and forcibly remove the Maduro regime and cartels?
Might makes right when it comes to international politics. There is no real international court. The court doesn't have any military. So by the laws of nature, Trump has the right to do whatever he wants there when it comes to invading Venezuela, considering we have the most powerful military on the planet. That being said, I don't think that he should. I am very opposed to regime change anywhere, and from deploying the military anywhere. There's no point to it. The American people don't really benefit from it at all. And so, sure, they might be bringing a lot of drugs into the United States, but you can just fix that by having a more active Coast Guard and building the wall and making sure that they can't even come into the country to begin with. There's a lot of ways that you can fix those problems without doing a full-scale invasion, which is just going to result in more chaos, just going to result in more gangs taking power, just going to result in even more unfettered immigration over our borders. And I think it'll make things worse. So does he have the rights to invade and do regime change? Yes, but I don't think he should.
All right. Tyler Dykes, there's your website on the screen. Tyler tells folks go to dykesforcongress.com, dykesforcongress.com. And can people go there to learn more about you? And once your Win Red is all set up, go there, they can donate and all that.
That's right.
Tyler, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on here tonight. The invitation is always there for you to come back at any time during this campaign. And we absolutely want to say best of luck to you. Tyler Dykes for Congress, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. It is 10 minutes before the top of the hour.
Your Rock Authority. Big Patriot Radio.
I wouldn't tell anybody about this.
All right. Next guest is already in the green room back there. Let's go ahead and bring him in. This gentleman is a husband. He's a father, conservative Republican committed to protecting the values that make the Low Country strong. This is his bio that he sent me. He and his wife, Stephanie, who is a third grade teacher here locally, are raising their young son. They live here in the Bluffton area near the Big Patriot Radio studios, somewhere around this area. He says that they are raising their son with the same principles that shape their own lives, and that is faith, family, hard work, and service to others. Our next guest worked as a staffer on Capitol Hill, as a policy researcher, and also in the private sector in Washington. He's seen the dysfunction of politicians putting themselves ahead of the people they serve. Imagine that. He's been right there seeing the reckless spending and the out-of-touch elites who have no idea what life is like for hardworking families here in South Carolina. So many of them, I would love to have them just follow me around Publix. That's all you got to do. Just follow me around with a calculator. Anyway, please join me in welcoming Dan Brown to the show, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Dan, how are you? Absolutely.
Well.
It's good to see you. How is everything this evening?
Staying busy. Working full time while running for Congress is it's something else. I'll tell you that. But we were, as a country, we are meant to elect citizen legislators, And that means people that are still working, hopefully some of the time, but it does make my life a little bit longer and a little bit harder from time to time.
To say the least. Now, again, welcome. We appreciate you being here. I want to be cognizant of your time, of your family's time. It is 10 minutes to 8 o'clock. You want to spend some time before you put that young man to bed and et cetera. So let's jump right in this. You're no stranger to politics. As a matter of fact, I guess with I think it's like 10 or 11 of you all that are running in the GOP side, something like that. You might be, some could say you might be the one who has been the closest to the office as a former staffer. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So after I graduated from Furman University, I went up to Capitol Hill and I worked for William Timmons in the 4th Congressional District. I was a member of his legislative staff as a young 20-something in Washington, D.C., making $32,000 a year while trying to provide for myself and figure out how to get my then fiance, now wife, to live up there and support both of us on a intro level staffer's salary,
Yeah, exactly.
which it was something else. Even then, that did not go very far in Washington, D.C. I'll tell you that for a start. But, I've always thought that serving your country is the highest calling you can have. And previous guest and a couple of other members of this election served their country so incredibly bravely in our military. And that's something that I've never done. And that is a bravery that I don't have, that they have, and I will never take that away from them. But finding where I could succeed, where I could help to serve my country, where I could try in just stepwise to make this nation a better place was something that I've always felt strongly about. And when I had the opportunity to go work on Washington, D.C. and the room where it happens, see how the sausage is made on Capitol Hill, that was an opportunity that as a 22-year-old, I couldn't turn down, and I dove into that head first.
Did you, or have you, I know as a staffer, you build a relationship, different levels, but a relationship with the congressman or congresswoman. Has William called you and said, or sat down and said, look, here's the side maybe you didn't see that you need to know about? Is he giving you any kind of, preparation as you run in this primary?
Nothing too directly that way. I mean, he is focused on the issues in the 4th Congressional District, I'm sure, and probably doesn't want to get too involved in, what was it? You said 11 people now in the race down here?
10 or 11, yeah.
Yeah, so I imagine that he doesn't really want to get involved in an 11-person primary on the other side of the state when there are so many important issues that are facing the federal government right now.
Your website, which I'll put up here in a minute, it is votedanbrown.com, has a very good list of your platforms. One of them is Peace Through Strength. I'm going to ask you one of well, I guess it is the last thing that I asked the previous guest, and that is, does the President of the United States have the right, speaking of Venezuela, have the right to invade either by land, air, or sea, and forcibly remove the Maduro regime and cartels? And I mean that by not going through a congressional declaration of war. Does Trump have that right?
Well, that's where it gets a little bit complicated, because the first article of the Constitution does reserve the power to declare war to the legislative branch of Congress. However, that has been very broadly interpreted of scrambling troops being within the purview of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States military. And I think the founders and the framers left that sort of intentionally vague, with the president being the Commander-in-Chief, but Congress having the ability to declare war, to let the American system sort of work it out in its own way. So I would say that if it is an intentional offensive, aggressive war, it would require an act of Congress to fully legally authorize it. However, you've seen what's been going on with the drug boats as they've been traveling to the United States. There's not been an act of Congress, but you can say that that is a defensive action meant to defend American lives, in which case it would be fully within the purview of the Commander-in-Chief to take those sort of defensive actions. Now, if we're talking about an aggressive regime change war, I do believe that that would require an act of Congress, as my understanding of Article 1 is laid out.
Gotcha. I have to say that in defense of all that, and don't hold me to the quote, but I believe this was the quote. At least it is in paraphrasing. President Trump was asked by one of the media, the press corps, about shouldn't you go to Congress and declare the war? And he's like, we're not declaring war on Venezuela. He's, I'm just going to kill the sons of bitches. I can't say it any plainer than that.
Yeah, and there's an interesting way to look at it, because if you look at the history of regime change in Central and South America that may or may not have been spearheaded by the United States historically, it has not been land, air, or sea invasions of United States armed forces. It has been the arming and supporting of guerrilla insurgents that are more aligned with American values, or the American values of the time, to try to hopefully depose what they viewed as despots at the time. So I do think that that is more likely than a full-on air, land, or sea invasion, because that's sort of the history of regime change within the continent.
And I think if folks want to learn more, and you're spot on right there. If folks want to learn more about that, the Central Intelligence Agency has made its life in getting people out of office. They are very good at it. We'll have to give it to them. All right, you got out of the swamp, Dan. You got out of that nasty sliminess of that city. I remember when I was up on Capitol Hill, having to go to the Capitol Hill Club and meet, and the down in the boiler room where the phones are, and it was so slimy. I mean, it was so nasty. Why do you want to go back?
I'll put it like this: I wasn't sure if I would ever want to go back. But let me explain why I left first. My wife and I decided we wanted to start a family. We are both graduates of Bluffton High School, so Bluffton has been a long time home for us. And someone got murdered outside of our apartment building in Washington, D.C., and we decided that, Alexandria, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C. And we decided that that was not the place where we wanted to raise our son. And Bluffton has always been home for us, so that's why we came back. And, all glory to God with this. We now have a beautiful 19-month-old son, but the first time I saw his ultrasound, I knew that, I'd been making efforts in my life to make the country better, but when I saw that, I knew that I hadn't been doing enough, because every opportunity that I've had in my life, I want to make sure that my son and all future generations have those opportunities as well. Opportunities where if you work hard, you play by the rules, you strive to succeed, you try with your own merit, and you do everything that you can, you have the opportunity to live that American dream, to buy that house, to support your family, to raise a family, to have a dog, the white picket fence, the whole works. But that's not something that is guaranteed moving forward, because we have crushing national debt that is mortgaging our children's future. And we've got a political class in Washington, D.C. that thinks that their judgment should be substituted for the judgment of people back home, that think that they know best, and that everything that they want to do needs to be the values that are inflicted upon the entire country writ large. And I think that that puts the American dream that I have had the opportunity to live and experience at the greatest risk that we've seen in decades. And I want to go back to Washington, D.C., because I believe that I'm going to be the fighter that helps to support the American dream, the happy warrior for the greatness of America.
Okay. Well, as you know, committees are a huge part of whether a congressman or congresswoman can ever get anything done.
Absolutely.
Committees are handed out with favoritism for those that can raise, the most money for the party and for the PACs. This is how this works. Some say, well, it shouldn't be that way. Yeah, you're right, but it is. What do you bring to the table, Dan, to be able to raise those funds, necessary funds that would give you a seat at the big table?
I think what I bring to the table in terms of the ability to raise money is just myself and my experience. I've worked on a number of campaigns, so I know what's needed with that. But also, I am willing to make the ask when it comes down to it. I'm willing to say, look, I believe in the values that you believe in the values that I believe in. You know what it takes to support those values? It takes money to support them. When I was talking about getting into this race, I had an individual call me who said these seats are bought and sold, and unless you can drop $500,000 of your personal net worth into it, it's not worth you even spending the time to get into it. And I don't agree with that, because I believe that Americans writ large believe what I believe, and that if I can get my message out there and I can say, I need your support, I need you to go to votedanbrown.com, because every individual dollar counts, $1, $5, $10, bit by bit, piece by piece, I can turn into that fundraising machine that's going to give me that seat at the table to hopefully be the freshman rep on the steering committee, so I can help to assign those committees and make those relationships, because it is a relationship game. The more relationships you make, the more likelihood of your priorities going through, because you're going to have more people that are more likely to support what you go through. So I do think it's important to build those relationships on Capitol Hill.
Since we're talking about funds and finance, would you take, I think I had mentioned, yes, I did, to the last guest, would you take money from AIPAC? If not, why? And have you taken any lobby money yet in this campaign? If you haven't, will you?
I would take money from AIPAC. In general, I am a supporter of America's relationship with Israel. I think they are our strongest ally within the Middle East. And I have not taken any money yet from AIPAC, but if they wanted to, yes, because I think that we are generally speaking aligned on a number of issues. In terms of lobbying money, I have not taken any yet, probably because lobby money doesn't like to give itself out when there's an 11-person primary.
Yeah,
I would definitely see myself receiving it if it was offered to me, but I'll also put it like this. They better hope they agree with me when they give me the money, because money is not going to change the way that I feel about the issues or the way that I feel about the way that I want to vote. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to say that, but I think my record speaks true to that as well.
All right. The first congressional district is military sensitive.
Yes.
From, the Marine Corps Air Station in Beaufort, obviously Paris Island, notably one of the, if not the most historic place in the Marine Corps, the U.S. Naval Hospital in Beaufort, Joint Base Charleston, Charleston Naval Weapons Station, and there's others, but a lot of military here, both current and retirees. They tend to stay, and that's a great thing. What will you do as a congressman to ensure that when BRAC, the base realignment, fellas and ladies, come around, they just keep on moving and don't stop here in the first congressional district?
So that's an issue I haven't really delved too deeply into. So I'm just going to be coming up with this a little bit off the fly, because I want to think through it as I'm talking out loud. So the bases here, we need to support the bases. We need the branches to know how integral each of the bases here are towards their branches. And I mean, I think South Carolina is pretty well strategically positioned, given how much of the first congressional district is along the coast, that I don't really foresee a time when it would become a substantial issue for base realignment down here in terms of the strategic positioning of bases. Now, if you've heard something that I haven't heard in terms of that being a significant issue, then that's something that would definitely need to be addressed. But speaking of our men and women who are serving now and veterans who are living in the area, that's one other thing that I think we really need to work on as Congress, and that's VA healthcare services. I think the VA is incredibly slow right now, and when I worked on Capitol Hill, something that I saw all the time was veterans that were calling into the congressional offices trying to get their congressmen to help them to get the care that they needed, because the VA officers or the individuals serving at the VA were not able to do it, or were not willing to do it, or were too slow in the process. And I think streamlining the process to make sure that our veterans receive care at the VA is something that we really need to dive into, so you don't have to call your member of Congress to get the care that you need and deserve for the sacrifices that you've made for this country.
So, interestingly put, the VA, and this wasn't one of my questions, but I think that, compared to the Biden administration, or actually the Obama administration, The VA has, when Trump came into office, the first administration, the VA had some major changes. And I agree with you. I think now it could be considered now it's too slow. People in Beaufort County have to drive to Charleston. There was some conversation that I heard, and I don't know what rag it was, something out of DC that, and don't quote me on this, but that Mace the conversations had begun about possibly putting a small VA medical center in Beaufort County. Is that something that you have heard of or know about when you were on Capitol Hill? Is that ever possible? I mean, this part of the state, we've got 200,000 people. I don't know how many. I think like 11% or 14% are military. Are we big enough for that yet or no?
I haven't heard of that, but I think we are absolutely big enough for it. And I would absolutely support getting something in Beaufort County for here and the surrounding areas, because you shouldn't have to travel 90 minutes to get the healthcare that you're entitled to because you served our country. I mean, it's just as simple as that. We need to support our veterans, and I am a budget hawk, but in being a budget hawk, if there's one thing that we're going to spend more money on, it's our military and our veterans. And they are the people that deserve it because of the bravery and the sacrifice that they have made for this country. So if that's something that we need to spend extra money on, and again, I don't know the logistics of do we have the large enough population to support it, but just living in Beaufort County, I would assume that we do, and it is something that I would support. Heck, I might even author the legislation to move one here if possible.
Excuse me. So speaking of logistics, this is a very long district. Yes. We all have some of the same problems, and we also have major differences. You know, it's a undeniable fact that living in Charleston County, Dorchester, Berkeley County is different than living in Beaufort County. Yes, we have Hilton Head Island. They have Isle of Palms. There, you can go back and forth on this all the time, but there is a distinct difference in the southern part of the 1st Congressional District and the northern part of the Congressional District. How will you be able to bring the northern part, you know, the Charleston, Berkeley, and Dorchesters into a comfort position having someone from Beaufort as the Congress representative?
Well, I think we've been comfortable with people from the northern part of the district being our Congress people about as long as I can remember. The last Beaufort County resident who was a serving member of Congress, I believe, was in the late 1800s. So that has gone on for a considerable amount of time. But, you know, I think there's a lot more that we share than separates us. I mean, even within Beaufort County, you can say, you know, you got north of the Broad and you got south of the Broad, and they're so very different. Yep. But the low country values that we share are going to be really simple. In the low country, you find people that believe in faith in God. They believe in the family as the most basic, strongest, and most important political unit in the United States. And they believe in hard work and personal freedoms. And that seems like something that is pretty universal north and south in the district. So as long as people in the north part of the district are okay with someone who has a strong faith in God, believes that the family is the most important political unit in the country, that hard work should pay off, and that the government shouldn't be telling you what to do and you should have individual freedoms, then I don't see why they would have any trouble supporting me.
Super. Dan, people I tend to talk to have said that I see a semblance in their conversations. Infrastructure always comes up. Illegal immigration has come up for a long time. And more, it's the economy. Mm-hmm. That's front and center on their minds. The president has recently said that affordability is a hoax. I think that was a quote. However, I tend to disagree with that as I think I had mentioned earlier, all of those who watch this channel, we walk the aisles of the Food Lions and the Publix every day, and we see and we feel the cost of groceries.
Yeah.
No disrespect against the president, but I doubt very seriously he walks the aisles of Publix or Harris Teeter or whatever. That just is what it is. Point is, it's very unaffordable for a lot of people right now. What has to happen, Dan, in your view, to get food costs down so Joe and Jane America can afford to feed their families at the same time not getting into a social experiment where big government is in control?
Well, I think that's part of the issue, is that big government is in control. And I do understand sort of where the president is coming from, but I think he phrased it poorly. Affordability is not a hoax, because while inflation is lower, that just means the rate at which prices are increasing has slowed down. Prices are still increasing over time. And if you look at what prices are now as opposed to what they were 5, 6, 7 years ago, of course it is drastically higher for housing, for food, cost of living. That's all considerably increased over the past few years, a lot of it due to Biden's inflationary policy. But affordability is an issue because of the increase in prices. So with an increase in price, there are two different ways that you can decrease prices. Basic economics tells you with the laws of supply and demand. If you decrease demand, prices are going to go down. So looking at a decrease in demand, that's not what we want, because a decrease in demand would mean that our country is going into a recession or potentially depression. People would be losing their jobs. People would be losing their houses. They'd be losing their car. They wouldn't be able to put food on the table. And that decrease in demand would drive prices down, but that's not what we want. We want to drive prices down by increasing the supply side of the graph. Now, how do you increase the supply side of the graph for something like food? Well, you have to increase the amount of competition. You have to increase competition in the market. You have to reduce the amount of red tape that people have to go through. You have to reduce government oversight. More money is spent on government oversight and compliance than almost any other industry in multiple different producing industries around the country. So we have to increase the supply by reducing the stranglehold that government has on the people creating supply. We have to remove barriers of competition so that more and more people can be working on adding to the supply. Mm-hmm. And when we have an increased supply, then naturally prices are going to go down, and there's going to be more products and goods in the market, and GDP is going to grow. I truly don't understand the other side of the economic scale, where people say, the more the government spends, that's going to grow the economy. No, that doesn't grow the economy. The Vienna School, I believe, is going to be the most accurate in terms of economic principles, which is reduce the government, allow the free market to increase the supply and increase competition, and that will allow prices to go down so that we reach an equilibrium where prices are going to be more affordable and people have more money to spend.
Outstanding. Dan, last question. Why should voters, when they go to the polls for the primary, why should they vote for Dan Brown?
Voters should vote for Dan Brown for a couple of reasons. First, I've seen Washington, D.C. firsthand in a way that no one else in this primary has. I have sat in the halls of a congressional office building, talking with the congressman about important issues that are going to be coming up for vote, things that we need to attack, different things that need to happen. And as we're sitting there, another congresswoman who happened to be a freshman at the time, her name only has letters in it, I'll let you figure out who that is, was walking down the aisle with a gaggle of press behind her, talking about something that was completely irrelevant to the votes that were going to be taking place that day. I've seen members of Congress that cared more to get to their interview appointment on TV and have missed votes. So I've seen how dysfunctional Congress can be, but I've also understand from a firsthand experience how the sausage is made. I am very ideologically conservative, but I also believe that we cannot sacrifice the good in pursuit of perfect. I believe that you need grinders in the back room who are going to work the sausage, who are going to take and make as much as they can to improve the country as much as they can. And if it does not come out ideologically pure, 100%, if it's 90% of what you want, I would not sacrifice a 90% improvement in pursuit of getting that 100%. I am going to be the workhorse, not the show horse. They should not vote for me if they care a lot about seeing their congressperson on the nightly news every single night. I'm not that person. You should not vote for me if that's what you want. But if you want a congressperson who is going to work hard, who is going to understand the system, who is going to take advantage of every opportunity to improve the lives of people in the Low Country, that's why you should vote for me, because I'm going to be the representative who's going to spend the most time working to make sure that your lives get better, as opposed to raising my own personal stuff.
Well, folks, there you have it. Dan Brown for Congress. Dan, there is your website right there. Hey, I appreciate you coming on. Can people go to this website and contribute or get involved? I know there's a full menu of platforms. Can they go there to do more?
Yeah, you can go to my website. You can learn more about where I stand on the issues. I think transparency is important. There's a donation button that is active. I would love if you were able to come and donate to my campaign, because a couple of individuals in this campaign have donated millions of their own personal dollars, and it's an uphill battle to come through there. But I believe that working individuals should have a seat at the table when it comes to Congress. And on top of that, if you want to meet with me, if you want to talk with me, you can find ways to contact me directly on my website, because I believe members of Congress, even those just running for it, need to be accountable to the people and need to be accessible, not just accessible via form letter.
Well, there you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Brown for Congress. Dan, thank you so much. You're always welcome here, and we hope to have you back. Folks, votedanbrown.com. Votedanbrown.com. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Mike, for having me.
All right.
Let's go!
The station that keeps it rocking 24/7.
Ladies and gentlemen,
BigPatriotRadio.com.
All right. Well, there you have it. Two candidates for the Republican nomination here in the 1st Congressional District, Tyler Dykes and Dan Brown on here tonight. That's going to do it for us tonight. We appreciate you being out here. Be sure to tell your friends and neighbors to tune in next week, 7 o'clock of Facebook, YouTube, BigPatriotRadio.com, as we simulcast around the world. We have a couple of big stories. That story about a doctor in, what do they call it? Functional medicine. He's going to be here. And it makes sense. It's the why. Okay, you got to quote why. Take this why. He's going to tell you. We're going to also hope to have another congressional district person. Plus, we're going to talk about 2025 and BigPatriotRadio.com and Beaufort County's House of Cards. All right. Don't forget to like, share the stream. Click on that QR button, that code up there. Send us some stars. Get it on your phone and share the show. Until then, be safe and watch your six. Good night, everybody.